We think it is a very important report simply because it's a detailed study on-ground study in one of the biggest coal districts in the country to understand what just transition will mean for India going ahead. What I'm going to do in next 10 to 15 minutes is to give you a short overview of what we have found in Korba and what are the implications of this study on larger policy issue on just transition in India. In fact, many things that we have found in Korba also has resonance for many countries in Global South. The first question that came to our mind was, how do we define just transition in India? This question was important because if you look at the dominant debate that is happening at the international fora on just transition, it is largely about formal workers and formal economy. Just transition debate was started by labor union whose demand were related to substituting and compensating workers from the fossil fuel industry. And this became the dominant debate in the global north and is still at the international platform, whether you look at UNFCCC or many platforms or other platforms. Just transition is about taking care of formal workers of fossil fuel industry. But we quickly realized that India's realities are very different. And I'll give you 4 points how we are different from the just transition debate that is happening in the global north. First, our coal district, especially our coal districts, are mono industry districts. We did a lot of research to see if there are coal regions with so much dependence on coal, and we found none. Even in Poland as well as in the US, there are hardly any region that can compare with Indian coal region as far as dominance of coal in the economy is concerned. If you look at the top coal districts in India, most of them have more than 40% of their GDP coming from coal and coal-related industries. This is very, very unique story of our part of the country, which means that other sectors of economy has not developed well. Korba, for example, has 60% of its GDP coming from coal and coal-related industries, coal thermal power plant and other industries. So that's the first reality. The second reality is we are an informal economy. In fact, for every one formal worker in fossil fuel industry, we have 4 informal workers. This was an analysis we did last year, looking at the cross-sectoral architecture and impact of just transition in India. And we found that informal workers dominate the fossil fuel industries like other sectors in India. The third reality is our coal districts are poor districts. They are not economically well off. In fact, Niti Aayog has just published its report on multidimensional poverty. You take the coal map of India and you superimpose the multidimensional poverty map of India, and you are likely to get the overlap. In fact, most of our coal districts are also the poorest districts. And the last reality is that the energy transition is going to change the energy geography of India. This is from where energy comes in India. The central and eastern India provides the bulk of domestic energy resources. But this is where renewable energy is growing. Renewable energy is growing in southern and western part of India. And it has implications on federalism. We need to understand what implications it has, but the energy map of India will change in the next few decades because of energy transition. Now, if you put all these 4 realities together, then the definition of just transition has to be completely different than the dominant narrative of global north, which is formal worker. In our case, just transition has to be about the structural changes. It has to be about socioeconomic development. And therefore, the framing has to be that of a development intervention. It is not only about providing alternatives to fossil fuel worker. It is actually about changing the economic structure of the coal-dependent regions, where coal, as I said, dominates the economy. And therefore, restructuring of economy, improving socioeconomic and environmental conditions, and then which will lead to decent work opportunities for workers, is what the framing of just transition in India will be. Now, if this is the framing of just transition, then what it would entail. And this is what Korba study details out. The study is an in-depth study based on household survey, focus group discussion to understand the nature and extent of dependency on coal, to understand alternatives, to assess risk and resilience of the district, and then to develop a just transition plan, an indicative just transition plan. Let me give you some detail about Korba. It has a population of about 1.37 million. It is a reasonably urbanized district. 40% of Korba lives in urban area. It is a Schedule 5 district with 40% Scheduled Tribe population. It is a heavily forested district with 2/3 of its geographical area forested. And as I said, it is an aspirational district with 32% of its population being multidimensionally poor. The coal economy is big. It is the biggest coal producing district. India's two biggest coal fields, Korba and Hasdev, are in this district. It produces 16% of India's coal, and this production is going to peak at about 80 million ton by 2025 with the plans that Southeastern Coalfield Limited has in the pipeline. It has 8 underground and 5 open cast mine, but 95% of coal, and this is the Korba story, 95% coal comes from 3 mines. 3 big mines, Gevra, Kusmunda, and Deepika. Rest of the mines produces very little. And the remaining mines are also loss-making mines. It also has 11 thermal power plant with about 6,500 megawatt capacity. So what have we found? The first finding is that there is large dependence on coal. Not a big news. But nevertheless, 1 in 5 workers are directly dependent on coal, power plant, and coal transport, which is about 87,500 jobs. Just for comparison, the total formal worker in coal industry in the US is about 60,000. So this is the way to contextualize how high the dependence is on coal in this district. The second finding is that informal workers are about 60%, which is less than what you find in district of Jharkhand, where the informal workers are about 80 to 90%. So Korba has about 40% formal worker working in coal and coal-related industries. And these are the best paying jobs. The formal jobs are the best paying jobs. The other finding is that the dependence on coal is highly concentrated in about 25 square kilometer area. This is where all the mines and thermal power plants are, and the rest of the district is dependent on forest and agriculture. That's where the poverty is. So you have coal economy, which is a concentrated pocket of development, and then rest of the district is where agriculture and forest related livelihoods dominate. Economy is concerned, as I said, it is a mono industry economy. Other sectors of the economy have not developed very well. And therefore, Korba is highly vulnerable to disruption in the coal economy. There's nothing else there. So if there's disruption in the coal economy, it will have huge socio-economic implications for the district. And Korba provides huge amount of revenue to the state and central government. Every year, currently, it provides about $1 billion. Coal mines in Korba provides at least $1 billion in revenue to the state government and central government, which includes royalty, DMF, CSR, and coal cess. And I'm not including taxes. If you include taxes, these numbers are going to be very high. So actually, one of the poorest districts in India provides some of the highest revenue to the state and central government. As far as coal phase down and coal industry is concerned, we found that Korba will start facing transition challenges very soon. One reason is its coal fleet is very old. Nearly half of the thermal power units are already more than 30 years of age, and they are slated to retire by 2027 as per the time frame of Central Electricity Authority. And even the latest plant will reach the age of 25 by 2040. So if we plan a transition framework, then all the thermal power plants in Korba, if we do not add any new ones, will phase down by 2040. As far as coal mining is concerned, they will start facing production decline from 2030 onwards. The big mines, who are producing 90-95% of the coal, have limited life available. Gevra and Kusmunda, for example, have a remaining life of just 15 years. And all other coal mine in Korba will also exhaust their resources very soon. So both coal-based thermal power plant and coal mines in Korba will have pressure of the new emerging renewable energy, but they will also have, they are also facing aging as well as resource exhaustion problem. That is what is there in Korba right now. How do we plan transition? Obviously, we have to do many things to transition this economy. We have put out 5-point agenda for transition, which includes restructuring of economy, repurposing of land and infrastructure, revenue substitution, reskilling and skilling of workforce, and responsible social and environmental investment. Korba will require a huge amount of investment in social and environmental infrastructure to build resilience of its community. Fortunately, Korba has these options. Its agriculture, forestry, and fishery sectors are least developed. These can be developed to diversify the economy. It has significantly high renewable energy potential of about 8.5 gigawatt, which can be maximized, as well as the tertiary sector can be developed. So we have detailed out how the economic restructuring can happen in Korba. The most important thing will be repurposing of land and infrastructure. Korba has about 27,000 hectares of land with coal companies and coal-based thermal power plants, and these will get decommissioned. How do we utilize this land and infrastructure and build a new economy is going to be very, very important. We have done analysis of big mines, and we find that the potential for repurposing exists for all the mines. They can be converted into tourism spots, land can be reclaimed for industrialization, as well as built-up area can be repurposed. So repurposing of land and infrastructure is another important component of transition planning in Korba. The good news about Korba is that it has an aging formal workforce, which means that the workforce can be retired as we close down the mines. 70% of workforce of SECL and NTPC are in the age group of 40 to 60 years. And their retirement can be synchronized with plant and mines. And therefore planning for transition of workers must start now. As far as informal workforce is concerned, they can only be absorbed by diversification of the economy. And therefore, for formal worker, pension and retirement is going to be an issue. And for informal worker, reskilling and re-employment is going to be an issue. Another important issue will be how do we build new skills for the new economy? That is another aspect of transition that we have to think about. Lastly, revenue substitution. As I said, Korba provides huge amount of revenue to state and central government. It is going to peak at about $1.5 billion by 2025. And this can be carefully planned by economic diversification. If we start the process of economic diversification, then revenue substitution can be taken care of. Lastly, investment in social and environmental infrastructure is extremely important. Korba is a severely polluted area. A huge amount of investment will be required in decontamination, reclamation of mines and plant. And under aspirational district program, already investment is going in healthcare, education, and other social infrastructure. How do we finance and implement just transition? Well, our recommendation is that we have to think completely differently as far as institutional arrangement is concerned. The current district administration is not designed to implement restructuring, and therefore we have to think about National State Commission for Just Transition and a special purpose vehicle at district level to implement just transition. Coal and power companies will have an important role to play as far as repurposing is concerned. Financing is important. We will need both international cooperation and national cooperation for just transition financing. And if coal cess can be diverted for financing just transition, then financing problem can be solved to a large extent. In next 30 years, if coal cess continues at the current rate, Korba will have $20 billion available for transition financing. So as far as financing is concerned, we have to see how the existing taxes on coal can be diverted for just transition finance. Let me end by giving you some key takeaways. I think the first key takeaway is that India's biggest coal and power district will face transition challenge not only because of renewable energy, but also because of exhaustion of coal resources and aging of coal fleet. So there will be a combined impact of these three things on India's biggest coal and power district. Coal phase down will have implications on federal relations, growth and development that we need to study carefully. We have 2 to 3 decades to implement this transition. We will require significant policy reforms on land, labor, as well as corporate law, which we are working on as far as just transition is concerned. And lastly, we have to view just transition as a redevelopment agenda.